Good evening, and welcome to the Ward 4 portion of the 2023 Cedar Falls Municipal Debate, sponsored by Northern Iowa Student Government in partnership with Women of Action, Cedar Valley Activate, and the Cedar Falls Waterloo branch of the American Association of University Women. Once again, I would like to thank our moderators, Jamie Winfro and Andy Malone, for being with us this evening. I'd also like to thank the City of Cedar Falls for allowing us to use the City Hall chambers and the Cedar Falls Utilities for broadcasting this debate live. For Ward 4, we have Gabe Grothaus and Aaron Hallmaker. As a reminder, we request only 90 seconds for candidates' opening remarks, and the reading of the candidates or of the questions, will be 60 seconds or less, and 30 seconds for rebuttal and debate if necessary, and one question per candidate for closing remarks. Thank you.
Gabe, you have 1 minute for your introductory remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Northern Iowa Student Government, for hosting the event and all the other sponsorships that are here tonight. My name is Gabe Grothaus. I live here in Cedar Falls with my wife, Layla. I was born here in the Cedar Valley. My dad was finishing school at UNI, and I came back in 2016 because I knew I always wanted to study business, and I wanted to go to the best business school in the Midwest. UNI, or we call it University of Nothing Impossible. So came here to UNI and graduated in 2019, double major in marketing and organizational leadership. My wife and I decided to make Cedar Falls home, and since then I've worked as a financial advisor and small business owner here in town. Earlier this year, my wife and I were looking for ways to get involved and ways that we could serve. And we started watching city council meetings, and I saw that there were some things lacking. There is a lack right now of servant leadership at City Hall. There's a lot of citizens who feel like their voice is not being heard. There's a lack of strategic planning. It feels that our council is getting very reactionary as decisions come up. And there's a lack of the citizens' voice being heard. As I've been out knocking, I've hit almost 1,800 doors myself already, and I've heard from so many that they reach out to council members, they reach out to staff, and they don't hear anything back for days, weeks. That needs to change. So my wife and I decided to run. We decided that this would be an important thing to do, and I've decided to represent those people who feel like their voice isn't being heard. I'm excited to see that there's many of you here tonight that are students. I want to represent you. I believe Cedar Falls' best days are ahead. Since the beginning of the campaign, we've said the best is yet to come, and we believe we can build on the best internet in the world, best university in the Midwest, and we can make this a community we're proud of. Thank you.
And Aaron, your introductory remarks.
Thank you. Also, thanks to Northern Iowa Student Government and the other sponsors, those in the audience tonight, and everybody watching from home. I've been a resident of Cedar Falls now for over 30 years. And I'm asking the folks in the 4th Ward to give me the opportunity to give back to the city that's given so much to me and my family. I came to UNI in 1986, and during my time at UNI, I met my wife now of 32 years. We left for a short bit to get graduate degrees, myself a law degree and my wife a master's in special education, and we returned, where I've owned 2 houses over those 30 years, the current one I'm in for 20 years, and we raised 3 daughters. This city has been amazing and wonderful to me, and I, like many of you, have seen the benefits of a progressive and a forward-thinking city council that worked together with staff to give us many of the amenities that we enjoy today, to give us the downtown that we enjoy today, to give us the rec center that we enjoy today, and the list goes on and on. I, like many of the candidates, fear that we're stagnating, and I do agree with Mr. Lauder, who previously talked about the need for us to work together. We need to work together because we have so much potential that remains untapped on the College Hill area, University Avenue, and again, the list goes on and on. Thank you.
All right, so we'll alternate who goes first on each of the questions. So we'll start with you, Gabe. The University of Northern Iowa is one of the largest employers in Cedar Falls. Cedar Falls serves as the host city for this Regent University. How do you view the relationship that the city has with UNI, and what would you do as part of the city council to enhance that relationship?
Thank you for the question. It's very important that we're connected with UNI. I was knocking on the door the other day on Walnut Street, and there was a renter who was there. And just to clarify what Mr. Lauda was saying, renters are citizens too. Renters live here, and they have a voice to be heard. He said he's lived here 3 years, and he's never had one political candidate knock on his door. And he said he votes every election. I think that's terrible. Young students right now don't feel like their voice is being heard. And if you want to get to know them, you got to go knock on their door. You got to go to the Hill. You got to go to University of Northern Iowa and talk to them. It's important that we listen and we set a vision. Right now, if you come to the university and you go to College Hill, you can see that there's not really anything happening. The city has said it's important that we have a vision there, but we haven't funded any changes. So it's like sending your kid to football practice without pads. Are we serious about this or not? Are we going to do it? Are we going to make changes or not? It starts by listening. I think as a young voice on council, I would represent those students well. I get back to volunteer and help the faculty in the business department almost every month, and I think I have a unique opportunity to provide perspective that way. But it's paramount that we're working together with the University of Northern Iowa.
Thank you. Aaron?
Thank you. Well, I agree, obviously, working with the students, but I also agree that for some reason the relationship between the city and the University of Northern Iowa, the university itself, to better the city around the University of Iowa and to work in conjunction with the University of Iowa to make Northern Iowa, to make it a more attractive university for students that are coming. I think if you watch the council meeting, the standing committee a couple of days ago, there's reference to the College Hill area, for example, being the front porch for the university, and that you want a nice front porch because that makes the university more attractive. Those relationships between the administration, those relationships between the students are important to foster. It is a bit disappointing that it doesn't seem that we've done better in the past, but if I'm on the council, I will certainly work to improve those relationships.
And you just brought up the College Hill renewal plan that was recently brought before City Council for discussion. Do you have any thoughts on that plan specifically? Anything action-wise that you think should be brought to the forefront?
Yes. The reality is that was a plan, re-envisioning College Hill, much like the downtown area was re-envisioned. It was educational and informed the council members about the makeup of a broader College Hill area. It highlighted areas where changes could happen. It suggested possible zoning changes and other things to encourage business on College Hill. Also, a different housing makeup so that we don't just have a gap between rentals and $450,000 houses, but instead have multi-unit houses that are more affordable. Those things can be acted on. Whether or not we agree with the entire vision, I think there are zoning changes that we can have. We can have incentive programs for to diversify the businesses on the Hill. Just like when I came here in '86, there was a grocery store there. There was a pharmacy there. There was a florist on the Hill. It was a place for students to be able to walk from campus to a small town that was full service. And I think that vision, if we adopt those changes, we can get there.
Gabe?
You know, you'll hear a lot of candidates share about this vision for College Hill and this vision, and everyone has an idea of what would be good. I think the question should really be, what is the city's role? The city needs to be clear on what we expect, and we are not doing well on communication right now. I was talking to some developers who said they came and did projects in Cedar Falls, Des Moines, Davenport, Cedar Rapids, and they said the process in Cedar Falls took longer and had more hiccups, even though it was a smaller process. College Hill right now was discussed the other night. There is a big chunk some folks are wanting to bite off. I think we all agree there's work that needs to be done right up there next to the university. The city needs to be clear. We need to set a vision, and we need to make that easy for development to happen. Communication is the start of that. If we're not listening to the negative feedback from developers, from landlords, from business owners, are we doing our job? I remember growing up, we would always hear that we get our best feedback from our worst critics. And I worry that some in City Hall and on council right now are not listening to their critics. They're not hearing the bad news. And that's going to be paramount as we work to get that College Hill turned around.
So to follow up on that, what has gone wrong in your estimation? Why hasn't the city been able to come together to affect any of those changes?
So if you watch council meetings or you go out and knock on some doors, you will hear that there is people that are just not talking to each other. They're not listening. And people come with their ideas of what they think is best, but they're not willing to listen to a counter view. I've heard a lot in this campaign about the importance of diversity and hearing diverse opinions. That means hearing opinions you don't want to hear. That means you have to listen to people that have a different view, and we're all neighbors. We all live together, and I think there's been some unfortunate things where there's been pitting against each other, development versus landlords versus business owners. We're all in the same community. We all need to work together. I think that starts at the top. Our council needs to set the example there. I've committed to donate half of my salary when I'm on council. I'm not impressed with the council wanting to double their pay this year. Part of the place I'm going to give that to is the College Hill and organizations that help College Hill. That leadership needs to start at the top.
Thank you. And same question, Aaron.
Well, the vision plan has been in place since 2021 and nothing's been done. It's not that that something couldn't have been done, but no action was taken. And to me, that means that the councils that have existed since then had no desire to do so. Despite the input from all of the citizens and all the players and the business interests and everybody that had input into that vision plan, despite all of that input, no steps were taken, which means we need to have a different makeup to the council that shares the vision of that vision plan and other plans that we have in place. And so it's not that it's impossible. It's not that we don't have the tools, but we have to have the willingness to move forward and work together. And that's what's been absent over these last 2.5 years.
Thank you. Shifting topics, one of the questions we received was regarding the mayor's original plan to not sign a Pride Month proclamation. He ultimately did sign it, but there obviously was some discussion. If you had been on council at the time, how would you have voted, and would you have handled that proclamation or any proclamation any differently? And we'll start with Aaron.
Is it me? It's my turn.
Think about it.
I would have signed it right away. To me, this needs to be and always has been, and that's part of the reason why I enjoy living here, an open and inclusive community. I understand that Mayor Green had his issues with it, but the interests of the city have to come first. And the interest of the city is be opening and welcoming and caring and loving to all people that want to live here. And that's one of the ways that we grow. That's one of the quality of life issues that I think that was asked about before. And I think that there was a hesitation, was extremely unfortunate. It certainly set the wrong signal, and there might have been an unintended benefit of awareness because of the reaction to his failure to do so. I would have signed it. I would have signed it right away and happily.
And Gabe?
Good question. I'm not running for mayor, so I'm not going to be signing any proclamations, and city council is elected to make policy, not proclamations. Proclamation doesn't change anything. Nothing gets done because of a proclamation. I think you either have to be in for all proclamations or no proclamations. So I would ask the mayor, make a decision. Am I going to put every proclamation that comes in and sign it, or am I just going to pick the ones that I want and the ones that I don't want? And there will be, if we have council voting on proclamations, there will be a divide in this community forever. Divisive issues will come up over and over again, and council will be asked to vote on it, and it will divide the community. I would not vote for any proclamations. I'm not being elected for proclamations. I'll be voting on policy, not proclamations.
The resilience plan was shelved by the current council. The resilience plan identified current and future issues that may confront our city. What steps should the city be making to address future floods, economic impact of drought in our agricultural state, and other potentialities? Would you be willing to bring it forward for review again? Gabe, this time.
I don't think I would bring it forward for review again. I think there are issues that face us from all kinds of, there's an issue with development where they're worried about the watershed. And I was talking to someone who has a house being built right next to them right now, and they were very concerned that no one even wanted to get their input. The city continues to put different issues in place, and we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to outside consultants, and we don't ask the person next door. So are there issues in this town when it comes to our long-term plan? Yes, and I think we'll hear more of that tonight. That's why one of the most important parts of my campaign is strategic vision and plan that we're working towards. I don't necessarily think the resiliency plan is the solution or the answer all to that. I think it comes by listening to the people who are next door.
Thank you. Aaron?
Well, I don't think the resilience plan was billed as a total solution to anything. It is a plan much like the vision plan for College Hill. It gives you an outline of the problems that we could be facing down the road and suggested solutions. So there are very pragmatic recommendations in that plan that whether it's brought forward or not, it's not going to go away and we should listen to. I, for one, would bring it forward. I would want to look at it again because there are things like retainage basins, the storm sewer work that we're doing to make sure that we can handle the additional runoff. There's also suggestions related to housing to help do that infill and also provide that middle level of housing. It is a very extensive plan that gives directions to the city council. Whether the city council adopts that plan is up to them. What parts of that plan they adopt is up to them. So whether there's disagreement or concern about any motivation behind the resilience plan or what it means, the reality is there are pragmatic and good ideas, and we need a council that is willing to look at it and act on it.
Could I respond? I think everyone on council did look at it, and I think people on council can continue to look at it. Adopting a plan is different than reading a plan, and I think there's benefit in reading any plan that's brought forward. Adopting it then gives directives to city staff, and council has been sometimes not clear on directives given to city staff. So if we're going to give them directives, we better be clear on what we're doing.
We did adopt a vision plan for College Hill, and no action was taken. So that's where the policy, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Okay, so follow up to that. Do you think there's value to all of these vision and vision type plans that we're making that aren't policy or aren't being acted on or aren't maybe even meant to be acted on? Or do you feel like maybe this is wheel spinning?
No. There's absolute value to it, okay? But the reality is that when the plan is adopted, it's not necessarily true that 100% is going to happen. Things will be adapted over time. It depends on the ability of the city to do it, what sort of capital improvements will be needed, whether or not we can afford the changes that were presented in the plan. But it gives that overall vision, and it signals to the citizens, not only of this city, but to anybody that wants to come here, that we care about certain issues and we're attempting to address them in the best way that we can. We have a suggested roadmap, and there are ways that we can follow it. But when we simply reject the plan, that's saying to the citizens of Cedar Falls and people that look at this community and say, I want to come there, that they're not looking at the future or being concerned about changes that need to be made to adapt to those sorts of things. So that is the importance of the plan. That's why I would be much more in favor of adopting the plan and then working out the details about what we can implement down the road. Same with College Hill, which is part of the discussion at the standing committee the other night. Same with the resilience plan.
You know, there's someone who used to work for the city that always said there's probably about 90% that we agree on, and we spend all of our time on the 10% that we don't. And I see that with the plans. There's always something that someone doesn't agree on. I don't know why this council or others are so opposed to amending the plan and adopting certain portions. And you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, I love everything about the plan, but I don't want this or that. And then it seems like this goes into this spinning loop. Why can't we pick the parts we agree with and adopt those parts and move forward? It seems like it has to be all or nothing, and I don't think that's a good way to bring a vision or a plan together.
Thank you. Taxes are a constant concern of Cedar Falls citizens. What would you do to keep taxes manageable? And if I may also throw in, would you be one of those council people leading the charge to keep the tax rate flat?
My turn?
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. You know, I work in finance and I care a lot about the numbers. There's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of thoughts, but we vote with our dollars. If we tell you what's important, look at the checkbook. And I would be a champion for the taxpayer. It's their money. It's not our money as city council members. We have a very small percentage of the taxes that we pay. It's the city's responsibility to manage it well. I was talking to a lady on Round Street. She's lived here 30 years, and she's worried she's going to be taxed out of her house. She saw assessments come back high, the new school, different things. She's very concerned. There's dozens of residents throughout Ward 4 that are very concerned about this issue. I'll tell you what we can't do. We can't have cuts to staff and then turn around and say we deserve more money ourselves. That's not servant leadership. I wasn't impressed with that. We can't go and spend dollars in the hope that something might come from it. I think we need to have names for our dollars, and we need to stick with our CIP and not make up things midway through the year that we think makes sense.
And Aaron?
Well, I think we need to continue with the budgeting process that the city's adopted over the years. You probably are aware that our finance department received the award yet again of producing a budget that is easily readable and understandable. And I know that's true because it was easily readable and understandable for me when I was reading it. One of the things that's true is that our city, thankfully, has always been extremely conservative in the budgeting process for the expenses and the operating costs for the cities. We assume that we're not going to take in as much money as may be projected, and we assume that the cost will be more. And that gives us a lot of flexibility. And any extra money that we have coming in tends to go to capital improvement projects. It's an incredible weighted budget, and that's why our taxes have remained low relative to other cities. And if we continue with that process, we'll have the balance of the improvements and the additions to our community that make us attractive, that return on investment that Mr. Lotta spoke of earlier, but also maintaining our budget and that AAA bond rating that we have.
The Cedar Heights northern area, so the Ridgewood, Timber, Greenwood area, is undergoing a major undertaking to stabilize the area and replace services. While necessary, it is a major disruption to the residents of that neighborhood. What would you do as the representative of that area to ease the burden of this improvement? Aaron, you're first on this one.
Well, I'm very aware with that improvement, and I've been out there, and it is very drastic, and there's a stabilization of the bank, and I've spoken with many of the people out there that are concerned. If you're not aware of the area, it's not an easy area to get in and out of when the roads aren't under construction. It's under construction, so I know there's concern about the access for emergency care and things like that. To me, the biggest thing with that, and I'll jump on one of Gabe's issues here, is the communication with the neighborhood so that they're fully informed and accurately informed, because what I've heard is that there may have been an exchange of information that didn't pan out to what they were observing and the development was there. I think that probably needed to started well before the project began to inform the citizens of that area in particular where the changes were going to happen, what the disruptions were going to be so that they could plan accordingly, make sure that those were accurate, and then also follow up because it's a long-term project, as the project moves towards completion.
Thank you for the question. I got an email today from a resident in that area that says, I just want someone to come look at it with me. Could you talk to me about it? Could we walk through it together? And, I think we're all very sickened by the federal politics that go on in America. There's still local government where people can come down, look at your street, and talk to you about it. My wife and I live off of Garden Avenue. We're not far at all from used to be Ward 5, and now is Ward 4, that we'll call it the North Cedar Heights area there. The plan has not gone well, and the city needs to take responsibility for that. There's times when the city makes mistakes, and we don't need to be ashamed of that. Everyone makes mistakes. We got to tell people, hey, we had a budget, things didn't come in right, we've had delays, there's weather, there's things that come into play. But I'll agree with Aaron on this. The continued communication is what's most important, and that's missing right now.
Probably the last question we have time for, but the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation recently sponsored and completed a housing needs assessment. If you've looked at the report, how do you interpret the results? Are there any particular actions you feel like should be taken, and are there any gaps that should be addressed in housing? And Gabe, I believe?
Yeah. It's a supply and demand issue right now. There's a lot of demand for housing, and the supply is not all there. Like I said, I spoke with a developer who's trying to build homes right now, and the feedback he's getting from the city has been very confusing. And planning and zoning has different things that they want, and the city staff has different things that they want. The process for building a home should not be as difficult as it is in Cedar Falls right now. And what it's going to take is us listening and getting some feedback and hearing from those contractors to hear, what issues are we not helping you on right now? Where is it hard? Where do you feel that there's that disconnect? And we got to be willing to make changes. Our process should not be as long and drawn out as it is. What's the city's role? Is the city supposed to subsidize every house that's being built? No. The city needs to make a process where we're welcoming to those who want to come build homes, and we need to make it easy for them to understand. The goal is not to have more and more regulation. The goal is to make it easy for them, and we need to be a solution to them, not a problem.
And Aaron?
Well, we are building a lot of houses. It seems to me the problem, and as part of that study points out, and also the resilience plan points out, is that it's the type of housing and the variety of housing that we have. If you go to any larger city or something like that, you'll notice a lot of different types of units that provide housing. And when you have those different types of units that provide housing, you have different cost ranges for those things. And that's what leads into the affordable housing and helping solve that crisis. I think the important thing from that study is to recognize that need for the diversity in housing so that we can fill in that middle gap, both with infill, how we develop in the College Hill area, around the University Avenue corridor, and also the type of housing that we require in the new developments that are happening to the west and south. It's important to have that middle ground, that middle availability for the type of housing, so we're more attractive to a greater swath of people, not only to stay here, but also to come here.
All right, it is time for closing remarks. You each have 1 minute. Let's start with you, Aaron.
With me. Thank you. I do appreciate your time. I can see some themes kind of taking place related to where the city is at right now and a bit of the stagnation of the council. I can tell you, in what I've done professionally for 30 years is I resolve conflict and I move things forward and I work with people. I have an ability and have proven ability to understand where people are coming from. If I don't know it firsthand, I listen and find out what their interests are, what motivates them, and how do we solve the problems that we have together. Those skills work in my professional career. They would work and have worked with committees, and they would work on the council. Everybody shares a lot of the similar visions. The question is, who's best able to work with the council, ensure that those visions are met. My belief is that experience I have over the years and my commitment to this community by living here for these 30 years and loving it as much as you do will serve the citizens of Ward 4 extremely well. So I'll ask for your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Gabe?
Thank you to you and I again for hosting, all the sponsors. My opponent mentioned his experience in years living here, and I would say the average age on city council right now is 53 and a half. And there is not anyone representing the young families. And so I think the perspective I bring will be important to hear what young professionals who chose to stay in this community, what they care about. My wife and I love living here. We love this community. We believe the best days for Cedar Falls are ahead, but it needs to come by listening to the citizens. I was knocking on the door over on Royal, and there's someone who says, at City Hall, they won't even listen when I tell them there's no parking downtown. You hear other people saying, we want an audit of our public safety department. We had 4 officers leave this summer, and we don't know why. Why aren't we doing exit interviews? Why isn't council involved in that? I've been very clear since day one. I would love to see an audit and see how that would impact things for us. I think that the message that we need to give to our citizens was we're listening, we care about you, and we'll be working for your future. If you have any questions, you can go to Grote House for Council, reach out on Facebook. We have 100% response rate to any questions you have. Would love to earn your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.